in child protective services, and they won't give them back to their loving families because they're making money.
This is a legal system that you're going into. And if you don't know the rules, you will be chewed up and spit out.
If I could say anything to a mother who just got their children detained, you're in a crisis. Yeah. Life feels like it's over. The most important thing is regaining custody of your children.
The child welfare system at its core is designed to protect children who need protection, okay? And that's key, is who need protection.
So social workers, out of fear, will remove more children rather than only remove those children that truly need to be removed.
It's okay. It's okay.
This isn't someone stole your car. Someone broke into your house. This someone took your child, your flesh and blood.
It doesn't say on this order that it was not proven. It says untrue. I immediately knew that, okay, well, this ain't over.
Signs? Did I miss them? Did I catch them? At this point, I honestly don't know.
Families only get a finite amount of time to reunify.
I came into this field to help families, not destroy them.
The difference between the criminal system and the child welfare system is substantial. You have more rights as a criminal than you do as a parent.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to CPS Current Events. I am your host, Amanda Cisco, and we will have a guest later today. But first, I wanted to talk about a couple of things. We were going to have a video today about the Adoption and Safe Families Act, and I was going to talk a little bit about that, but I don't think that we're going to get into that. So what I want to talk about today is family court corruption, and I'm sure, obviously, if you're listening to this, you can relate. So I would like to share a father's story who was very much oppressed, I guess you would say, by his family courts in his state, and he started speaking out about it, and I would like to go ahead and play that video for you today.
Thank you. My name is Mark Ludwig. I do want to thank the members of the committee for taking the time to hear this issue, an extremely important one. Without going into all the details, out of respect for my son and his right to love his mom, shortly after my son was born, I went 204 days without seeing my son. At the end of that time, I was relegated to the equivalent of an every other weekend visitor. Shortly after that, I was diagnosed with a pretty large growth in my brain. We didn't know what my future was going to be like. And it dawned on me that at that point, if something were to happen to me, my son's mom would automatically get sole custody. But it also dawned on me, if the situation had been reversed, I would have automatically gotten sole custody of the very son that I was already only getting every other weekend. Why would it take the death of a parent to convert from an every other weekend visitor to having full custody of a child? If that's the case, shouldn't both parents have 50-50? As a result of my story being televised on a news station in St. Louis, my story went viral. I think it's been 30 million views or something like that. And I started doing a lot of Facebook Lives. And my reach now is around 3 to 4 million in an average month. This past year I did a tour of 38 cities in 24 states. And this isn't about me at all. This is about a fact that obviously this issue resonates. If we're attracting 3 to 4 million people every single month that are paying attention to this, and as you look behind me at all the people that are affected, this is resonating, and it's the only issue in 30 years that I've been around the political arena that crosses gender lines, crosses racial lines, crosses political lines, crosses socioeconomic lines. It affects everybody. because we already know half of all marriages end in divorce. And for children, they have two traumas that they're dealing with. Trauma one is mom and dad aren't together. They don't know why, but they're very confused because they love both of them. Now add into that confusion, only one of them do they get to see on a regular basis. The other one is relegated as a visitor, which makes one parent in their mind the superior parent and one parent's the inferior parent. Now imagine that to a 7-year-old child or a 5-year-old child that doesn't know how to verbalize this confusion. And we wonder why, when we look at the statistics, between 70 and 94% of violent crime rates, incarceration rates, high school dropouts, behavioral problems, substance abuse problems, can all be tracked to growing up, in many cases without the father. But this is technically gender neutral. I'll fight just as hard for a mother as I will for a father. But the situation can be solved so easy by starting the case with a 50-50. In every other area of law, we start out with a due process that says people are innocent until proven guilty. And yet we walk into a courtroom and one parent is presumed to have the upper hand in most cases. Many of my followers and just about everybody in the room behind me will verify, most people I talk to say, you know what, I didn't have as much animosity for my ex until I met with my first family law attorney. And they told me that, look, in our state, you're probably not going to get 50-50. One of you is going to win and one of you is going to lose. So unless you want to be the one that loses, you better start digging up dirt to prove why you're the better parent. And that creates this adversarial relationship. And that's why these court cases are drug out for 6 months, 8 months, 10 months, a year. That's why, as we just heard, people settle. People aren't settling because they're glad that the arrangement, they're settling because they ran out of money and they don't have an attorney to keep fighting for them. Can you imagine how different it would be if those parents would walk into an attorney and the first words out of that attorney's mouth are, look, in our state, you're probably both going to get 50-50. So you might want to learn how to work together and how to co-parent for the betterment of your child. And now all that money, instead of going to the attorney's college fund, can go to their own college fund for their own kids, instead of having one parent ripped out of that child's life. And so to continue on a path, and not in any way putting down the previous speakers, but to think that we're doing okay with our children across America and in the state of Pennsylvania, that people are settling and everything is fine, is almost like Mr. Magoo driving down the street, thinking that everything's fine while everybody's running off the road behind him because he's cutting them off. That's the situation that we're in right now. So I thank you so much for taking the time to hear this case, but I beg of you, please, for the kids of Pennsylvania, give them a chance to not have one of their parents ripped out of their lives.
Give them a chance to not have one of their parents ripped out of their lives.
Thanks so much.
So I saw that video earlier and it really resonated with me. I know a lot of you guys are dealing specifically with CPS court cases, but a large number of these CPS court cases are a result of a toxic ex-biological parent who is waging war and knows the court system, and he's using that system and manipulating that system to cause terror and place the other parent under siege. And really, at the end of the day, who suffers more than anyone? The children do. So I hope you guys enjoyed that video. I think that applies to every state in this country. And, you know, I don't know if you guys were reading along with what he was saying, but there were words on the screen that it wasn't quoting what he was saying. It was kind of like explaining the effects of what he was saying. So he was explaining one point that a lot of the funding, so every dollar of child support that a state collects, the federal government gives that state $1. So say you collected $1 million in child support, you get $1 million from the federal government. And that money, you know, goes toward the psychologists who do these parenting capacity evaluations on you to see if you're a safe parent, or, you know, these CPS workers who are identifying any possible issues with whatever parent is non-custodial. Okay, so Barbara says, my niece is dissociating. She gave up her most prized possession. Now she's not eating. How can I save her? Barbara, I am not a psychologist. I'm not sure exactly how to answer that question. If you can elaborate, maybe I can help you. I was told by the sheriff office that the only 2 cops I can report the abusive foster home to are 2 cops who are friends of the foster mom. This is not just corrupt, it's evil. Oh, okay. Okay. So I understand what Barbara is saying. Sometimes dissociation is one of the few ways that a human being is able to survive a severely traumatic situation that they're in. I know that I have had to do it at times. And it's something that I work on to avoid using that as a coping mechanism. But I'm not sure. I'm not sure what to tell you. We're all trying to figure out how to fight this corruption here, Barbara. But I wish you the best of luck, and let's keep in touch. So I want to go into the Adoption and Safe Families Act today. I will talk about it after all. The only reason I didn't want to talk about it at first is because, I was scouring my research platforms for like very honest and raw truths about the effects of the ASFA, Adoption and Safe Families Act of 1997. I had a little bit of trouble, but I'm going to play something for you guys anyway. And, I have always been a big supporter of the notion that, believe nothing you see and only believe nothing you hear and only half of what you see. And what you do see, run that through your own filter. You choose what to believe and what not to believe, and draw your own conclusions. So the purpose of ASFA is to speed up the legal process. The primary purpose of the law was to shorten the length of time a child spends in foster care and speed up the process of freeing children for adoption. ASFA places primary importance upon the safety of the child. So all of this domestic terrorism that is taking place in our country right now with the CPS and the family courts is operated under the guise of what is best for the child or child safety. It couldn't be less true. It could not be less true. So that's what their justification was, but really what it did was create incentives for CPS workers, foster parents, adoptive parents to to just keep ripping these children away from their loving families who they very, very much want to go back home to. So Pennsylvania Progressive Movement says, yep, they get $1 for every dollar they collect. They care more about the money than visitation. My father paid child support for 23 years and he only saw the kid twice. Courts did not care about visitation. And no, I'm sorry, they don't. They don't. So let's go ahead and play that video. So this is about this video that we're going to play in a second. It's about the an extension to ASFA that was passed not too recently. So let's go ahead and play that second video.
One of the most devastating consequences of mass incarceration and of mass criminalization in this country is the separation of families, the destruction of families. We saw time and time again that incarcerated parents were really at very severely disproportionate risk of losing their parental rights, even in cases where termination was not in the long-term best interest of the child.
There are too many families being broken, and not only are these families being broken, but talking from my personal experience with the system is very much broken.
Mothers and children are separated, and a lot of mothers don't know their parental rights, and I was one of them. I was one who lost her 2 daughters to the system. I was basically forced to give up my parental rights.
The overarching goal was to create a statute that really gave incarcerated parents and their children a more fair chance to stay together.
The Correctional Association of New York is a criminal justice policy advocacy organization based in New York City, and we focus on monitoring prison conditions in New York State, advocating to improve prison conditions, and advocating to reform the criminal justice system.
The United States incarcerates more people per capita than any other country in the world, and that means that we also incarcerate more parents per capita than any other country in the world. We're also talking about a mass impact on children. So in this country, there are over 8.3 million children who have a parent who's under some form of criminal justice supervision.
As we know, our prisons are made up primarily of people of color. from low-income families. So that's what ASFA is impacting.
African American children are more than 7 times as likely to have an incarcerated parent as white children. Latino children are more than twice as likely.
Black parents are more likely to have their rights terminated, and those same children are less likely to be adopted. So at every stage, we are talking about a disproportionate impact on communities of color and their children and their families.
The Adoption and Safe Families Act, or ASFA, is a federal statute that went into effect in 1997. The main principle of ASFA is permanency for children in foster care, that foster care is not a permanent situation.
So the Adoption and Safe Families Act was brought about really to keep children from lingering in foster care for a long time. There was a real concern that children were spending sometimes their entire childhood just lingering in foster care. So the initial plan and goals were good.
Now, one of the main ways that ASFA does that is by setting a general time limit. Subject to certain exceptions, children who have been in foster care for 15 out of the last 22 months are supposed to move towards termination of parental rights.
The median sentence for a woman in a New York State prison is 36 months, and ASFA's time frame gives someone about 15 months. Also, someone can be awaiting sentencing for over a year. So there goes 12 months.
It's just incredibly difficult to meet the mandates of the child welfare law if you're incarcerated, especially maintaining consistent and meaningful contact with your children. Also, finding a non-foster care home for your children is very difficult from prison. And then third, you just have tremendous stigma.
The Coalition for Women Prisoners is a statewide alliance made up of over 1,800 individuals and 100 organizations. It is formerly incarcerated women and men.
We all were seeing case after case that showed just how far astray the law had gotten from what its original goals were, and knowing that something in the statute needed to be changed. It was a terrific campaign. It was a campaign that was really led by people who were most directly affected. We had the support of the New York State Office of Children and Family Services, and ultimately they passed and was signed into law on June 15th, 2010.
The ASFA expanded discretion law is important for incarcerated parents for several reasons. First of all, visibility. It really builds into the statute the recognition that incarcerated parents have a very particular situation that needs to be taken into account. It also recognizes that a parent, even a parent who's serving a very long prison sentence, can continue to play that meaningful role in the child's life. Finally, what it does is it moves away from this rigid, one-size-fits-all, time-driven model of ASFA to create the necessary flexibility to allow child welfare workers to make nuanced decisions about what really would best serve these families.
People like myself and other people fought hard to have this law put in effect. Like, no matter what you go through, those are your kids. Like, at the end of the day, those are all you have.
Just like we saw that there was a need to change the statute and to change the law, now that the law has been changed and it's on the books, we've seen a real need to actually make that law jump off the page and come to life. We are really hoping with this video to make sure that all of the players involved know that there's a law on the books that helps ensure that families separated by incarceration really have the fair chance that they need and the fair chance that they deserve to try to stay together, to try to stay whole.
So that is the expanded discretion law. It was an addition added to the Adoption and Safe Families Act of 1997. Like I said, guys, draw for yourselves what conclusions you would like. I don't want to tell you how to feel or what to think. And excuse me, I swear my phone is always blowing up. Okay, reality of running multiple businesses. So I wanted to get into, what the effects of the original Adoption and Safe Families Act. And honestly, anything that keeps families together, like I've said always, I am fully in support of. And the best way to make change is to, let's be honest, file lawsuits, go for the jugular, hit him in the wallet where it hurts. Protests, they kind of work. But really like voting people into office that are aligned with what we the people need and what our visions are and what we need as progress, as a society as a whole. Those are great ways, and I'll talk about that more another show. So I'm going to post the link to what I'm about to read to you now. So and it'll be posted in the comments. So this was posted January 28th of last year, so it's fairly recent. And the title goes, Adoptions and Safe Families Act is the crime bill of child welfare. As we move into a new Democratic administration, ending family separation inflicted by the so-called child welfare system should be a top priority. Specifically, the Biden administration should refuse to sanction the federal government's endorsement of arbitrary timelines that permanently tear families apart. That means repealing the Adoption and Safe Families Act of 1997. ASFA was developed at a time when our country was hysterical about crack babies and resentful of their poor, mostly Black parents. Media coverage focused on these selfish, drug-addicted parents who were giving birth to permanently damaged infants. As a result, many children were spending years in foster care with little pressure on the system to reunify them with parents or find them an adoptive home. The law ties federal child welfare funding to a requirement that, with few exceptions, states move to terminate the rights of parents whose children have been in foster care for 15 of the past 22 months. And the link is right here below, guys. After that period, the children become eligible for adoption. The COVID-19 pandemic has shone a light on the arbitrary and unfair nature of this timeline and which parents are most unlikely to meet it. Parents who are unable to visit with their children or participate in services recommended by CPS in furtherance of reunification during the pandemic are unsure whether their parental rights will be terminated. Even in normal times, for incarcerated parents whose ability to visit with their children or access services is out of their control, this timeline is usually out of reach. This is true regardless of whether their crime for which the parents are incarcerated had anything to do with their children. Many parents are held pre-trial because of their inability to pay cash bail before entering jails, which are even less likely to have services than prisons. Similarly, for many parents who are struggling with addiction, where relapse is often part of recovery, the timeline is simply unrealistic. Worse yet, ASFA allows states to forego reasonable efforts toward reunification altogether if there are aggravated circumstances. Yet, this term is also unfairly broad. While murder, sexual abuse of another child, or prior termination of the parent's rights to another child are listed as examples, Congress made clear that the list was not exhaustive. Today, many parents have had their parental rights terminated due to hardships earlier in their lives and have had children later under completely different circumstances. Many lose their children simply for being poor. I know this because I defended these parents in court for years. Imagine a 16-year-old who was not well equipped to parents as a teenager and therefore had a parental rights terminated. Once an adult in a wholly different personal and financial position than she was as a youth, if she found herself in contact with the child welfare system, the state would still not be required to make reasonable efforts. Regardless of a parent's progress or the triviality of the current allegations, the state may bypass reasonable efforts entirely using this gaping loophole. And others have argued vagueness of the aggravated circumstances exception contributes to the likelihood that life-altering decisions will be made arbitrary, capricious, and discriminatory. ASFA was a bipartisan effort championed by many Democrats during Bill Clinton's presidency. The Biden administration and Congress have had the opportunity to take a closer look at ASFA and make its reform or repeal bipartisan as well, particularly in the midst of a period of reflection and revelations about the societal harms of punitive laws more broadly. The overwhelming bipartisan support of the First Step Act shows that politicians have come to understand how misguided their earlier efforts like the 1994 crime bill were. ASFA is the crime bill for family law, and a movement has grown calling for ASFA's repeal. This Congress should respond this in kind. While the drafters' intentions may have been noble, in effect, many of ASFA's provisions have served primarily to stereotype and punish parents. As we now know, the crack baby hysteria was unwarranted since most of those children grew up healthy despite exposure. Oh my God, newsflash. Not that I endorse or condone drug use around your children. Okay. Yet we continue to make the same mistakes today by labeling parents struggling with addiction, as well as the incarcerated, as bad parents and punishing them by taking their children. In so doing, we brand their children with the title of foster child, immediately conjuring up images of broken, traumatized children who have been failed by their monster parents. Really, it couldn't be more far from the truth. They've been failed by the system. And most of them were unnecessarily ripped away from their loving families for federal money. But it is our society that is failing. We still have a system that favors family destruction, despite clear data that even when parents have not been perfect, children are irreparably damaged when they are separated from them. We continue to prioritize a system that we know leads to worse outcomes for those children because we've created an entire industry that is financially dependent on taking children from their parents. ASFA is primarily to blame, and it's got to go. It is time for our leaders to recognize that, just like the 1994 crime bill, ASFA has wreaked havoc on the poor and communities of color. In a post-Trump era, we have an opportunity to start fresh and engage in meaningful reflection about our punitive culture and the unintended consequences that resulted. If we truly care about our kids, we have to stop focusing on punishing their parents. And that is it for that article, guys. The link was posted in the video. Feel free to take a read, and the author's name is Shanta Trivedi. So we are going to get ready to bring on our guest for today, but I would like to wrap up by saying we have a lot of work to do. We have a long way to go, and Vincent Davis before has said himself on many of his shows, we're going to look back at this foster care system 100 years from now and scratch our heads and think, what the hell were we thinking? So let's go ahead and bring on our next guest. And we'll just give her a few minutes to come on. Hello, Amber. How are you?
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing all right. How about yourself?
Good, thank you.
Great, great. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Amber.
I'm 32. I'm a mother of 7. I run my own company. I'm married. I attend church weekly. Just your pretty normal, average mom.
That's very cool. I'm the oldest daughter of 10 kids, so I completely understand what it's like growing up in a big family. I kind of miss it. It's very fun. It's very fun. So tell me, what brings you on our show today?
Well, all 7 of my children were taken. My story starts back in November of 2015. It was a normal day. I got my kids from school. We went shopping. We came home kind of late. I, was getting baths done and cooking, and CPS came to my door with about 5 officers in different cars, and immediately arrested me. And the charge was 2 felony counts of child abuse for supposedly hitting my daughter in the face with a belt. And I mean, I was thinking, like, as a normal person, like, if this happened, there's going to be welds. Go see her. That's going to be my proof. Go see her now. She's in the house,
Oh, you shouldn't have let them into your house. Oh no.
Oh, they had already, they put their foot in the door. There was no closing it for me.
Oh wow. So sorry.
Yeah, these police officers, they arrested me like I was a drug dealer. They didn't give me a chance to get dressed. They came to my house like at 10 o'clock at night. So you imagine, like, I'm in my night clothes trying to get everybody to bed. And I have 7 kids, all under the age of 7. So you can imagine my house, like a little preschool. And so they arrested me. I was arrested on 2 felony counts of child abuse for beating my daughter with a belt in her face. My church came and bonded me out for $20,000.
I'm really glad we were able to help you. Oh my gosh.
I was there less than 24 hours. I never seen a judge. I never talked to a lawyer, nothing. So I got out, and again, me being naive, I'm like, okay, so I'm innocent. They're going to give me my kids, right? No, no. So I worked the case plan for 4 months. After that 4 months, I received a letter from the court saying that there was no found evidence. They took all of my children to a CPS doctor, which said there was no evidence of abuse. And I said, okay, great. That means I'm going to get them back, right? No. The worker that I had was very green, a brand new worker, very young, no kids, nothing like that. She worked with me. She gave me my kids shortly after I received that letter, told me that I was like a superhero mom. She never seen anybody get their kids back that fast. And she quit. She told me she was quitting because she could not deal with what was going on behind the scenes. She couldn't handle that.
Maybe we could
I
bring her on
knew
the show sometime.
I know exactly what she meant.
Yeah.
And then I had gotten a different worker. So I got the kids back. 2 months later, they're at my house again. This time because my kids stink at school. So I said, okay, go smell their clothes, you know.
They stink at school.
Yeah. Like at the end of the day, they called and they were like, your kids are dirty. And I'm like, well, I mean, they might be. They were at recess, but that's not how I sent them. So I get my kid from school because they call me and say, you need to go pick up your kids and meet us at your house. So I do. And I pick up my kids that are in elementary, and I'm like smelling their clothes. I'm like, what is going on? Their clothes smells like Tide. So the previous case manager I was telling you about, she met up with me there with the CPI worker. And I had told them, I said, you smell them. My kids are not dirty. Even their clothes after recess still smells like Tide. And so I told the CPI lady she was to get out of my house. She's not allowed on my property. I was tired of the harassment. Of course, they looked at it like I was uncooperative, and they were not sure if they were going to close the case, but did leave the kids with me at that time. So I left to Texas with my children. They didn't tell me there was going to be a case, so I didn't know there was going to be a case. And we left. I was in fear. I just knew that they were going to try and take my kids again. So I get to Texas, and lo and behold, Florida, because that's where I'm from. So Florida comes and takes my kids from Texas.
Florida came to Texas to take your kids.
On an airplane, yes. And after that, I never got my kids back again. I have been fighting. I've done everything they said. They told me to jump. I said, how high? I'm not even playing. I was asking for services that they didn't even offer, you know, because I wanted to do anything that I could. I said, okay, give me financial classes, you know, because I had 7 kids. I was very young, you know, it's hard to take care of. And so I'm like, give me financial classes. I'll do this. I'll do that. They weren't interested in that. All they made me do was counseling and a parenting class. And so I did all that, and I still didn't get my kids back. I had a case manager. My case managers changed every 3 months. So I got this other case manager, and we're in court. It's one of the court hearings. And she's talking to me in this parking lot. And she said, Amber, when you get your kids back, you leave the state because these guys do not like you. What? What do I do? What do I do with that? Like, are you guys kidding me?
This is who that told you?
This is my case manager of that time. She's like, you have to leave because I can't say. Can I say the county or no?
You can say the county.
Because Pinellas County doesn't like you. And so I fought and I fought and I fought, and they adopted 5 of the children out that were already, it was already in my eyes prearranged, because the people that had them before immediately took them and they were adopted. And so the father got 2 of the kids. He didn't want the rest, so he took the 2 that he wanted, and they allowed that because you can be a father for 2, but you know, forget the rest, we'll throw them away. And so they gave him the 2, and as soon as that case closed, he gave the kids back to me. He didn't want to handle it. He couldn't have a babysitter. He liked the ideal of being a dad, but not the actual of being a dad. So of course, what mother's going to turn down their kids? So I took these kids back, the two, and I had them for 2 years. CPS never knew. There was no problems. Me and the father were cooperating. So there was no issues. They were in school in my name, doctors in my name, everything. So the father got mad because he was no show, no call for 3 weeks. And I had plans that weekend. And I said, no, you're not coming to pick them up because I have plans and you've been a no call, no show for 3 weeks. And so he called the police on me and tried to get me arrested for illegally having the children, which his court order, I guess, was expired. So Tampa PD was not willing to do anything with it. So I talked to my grandma and, told her what was going on with the father. And my grandma was like, you should just go get a restraining order. And so I went and got the restraining order. And 7 days later, CPS was at my house picking up my kids. And the only reason is that they were not supposed to be in my home. And after that, I continued to fight that. So it opened up another case plan. The ones I previously told you there was 5 adopted out. I was told that there was 5 adopted out. There was only 4. So come to find out, my special needs autistic son, who they claim is unadoptable, was not adopted out. So I fought for him.
Where was your autistic son, your special needs son? Where was he this whole time? He wasn't in respite care, was he?
He was in respite cares. He was bouncing back and forth between day and night placement. He was in and out of Baker Acts because they didn't want to deal with him. And he's still going through that. But so I got the 2 kids taken and I was fighting for them. And when I found out that my son was not adopted, I called the adoptions case manager and I said, which happened to be because they were not going to let me fight for this. So they had already given me the adoptions case manager. And so I had called and I told her, I said, you know what, I'm not leaving my son in foster care when I can, if I'm capable of having 2 of them, why can I not have him too? And she had fought me on it at first. And then we started doing visitations together with the kids. And she seen what type of parent I was and how much I cared and what I did for them. I was the only active parent. And so she tried to help me. She said, okay, we're going to get him back into your house as a non-relative caregiver.
What? A non-relative caregiver?
Yeah, because he was already terminated.
Biological mother.
I told her, this is what I told her. I said, you call it an apple or an orange, but I'm going to call it what it is. And that's my son. I don't care what you call it in court. I want my kid.
Yeah.
And so she tried, and there was a lot of red tape, as they tell me. I don't know what red tape means, and I don't really think that's my problem about their red tape, but there was too much red tape for the system to allow him to come back to me because I was TPR'd. And so I kept seeing him. They kept telling my son, now, mind you, he is autistic. Oh, you're going to go back home to your mom. We're all doing weekend visits together with his other siblings, unsupervised, all of that. And then after that, it went nowhere. Like, they TPR'd me again on the other 2 that were with their father, because here in Florida, if one parent has the child, the other parent cannot be terminated. They terminate 2 parents or they don't terminate any. So because he had
your dad as well,
this time around, yes, they did terminate him. So after this TPR, they kept me in my kids' life. I was their backyard parent. My son would run away from foster care because of the sexual abuse or the physical abuse, and he would run to me or he would call me. They would have me watching him. They would tell me it's okay to pick him up. They knew he was in contact with me. The case manager encourages it. But when we get into court, it's like none of that existed. They say that I don't see the kids, that I'm not allowed to. And you're not allowed to speak in court. You're not allowed.
They don't
I
let you
actually
do a
almost
single word, not a single fucking word.
no, and she threatened me 3 times with contempt of court because I wouldn't shut up.
That sounds like me.
At that point, I'm like, look, I know my law, so contempt of court is like 72 hours. That's like a vacation, so it's kind of might be worth it to say what I want in court. But they wouldn't allow it. The guardian ad litems try to talk. They shut the guardian ad litems down. So I knew basically at the end of this case that they were not going to let me have these kids. No matter what I did, I completed the case plan. I was picking up and transporting for them. They didn't even need transporters because I was doing the job. But either way, they just, whatever that case manager said before, where they don't like me, that is what it is. And so they would not allow me to
as well. So I'm in law school right now. One of the old people on my case, I'm not going to say who they were or what their role was, literally told me, well, that's great, you're in law school, just make sure you don't practice in this city. They are not going to like you there. And I was like, okay. I kind of like, I see a lot of similarities in my personality and the way that you speak. I run multiple businesses myself. I came from a large family. People used to stop me all the time and tell me like, oh my gosh, you're doing such an amazing job raising these kids. And maybe they just hate people like us. I don't know.
It's because we say what we want or how we feel, and we don't really care what you think, and we're going to say it anyway. And I think that kind of offended them, because I wasn't going to allow them just to come in and tell me how it was going to be, if the law didn't say so. And I wasn't abusing my kids. They weren't starving. I never hit them. We had a home.
Do you ever know where these allegations came from?
The father was doing some of the allegations because he didn't want to pay child support, and I wouldn't take him off. So he figured if he got custody, that he wouldn't have to pay child support. But it bit him in the ass, it bit him in the end, because he couldn't handle the kids. So guess who he gave him back to anyway? But yeah, and then so it was the father a lot, and he would also have his girlfriends calling on me. And when I mean like a lot, before the police came and arrested me, I've been dealing with this since 2007. Like, he's called and said I don't take my kids to the doctor. And now I'm an overworried parent, and I was a young parent. Like, I was 17 years old. So my kids went to the doctor for everything because my poor kids could not, have a scrape. I was just like, so I want them to be, protected. So I had records for anything and everything at the doctors, and the CPS would go talk to the doctors, and they would laugh and be like, I don't even know why I'm here. Multiple times. Like, this has been going on for years. So then when he said I hit her in the face with a belt, I guess, well, Florida told me, the case manager told me that once you get so many calls, it doesn't mean even if it's false, that once you get so many calls, they have to take the kids. And I'm not sure if they were lying to me or if that's just Florida's
laws. I don't want anybody to get any bright ideas.
Like, it's not right. Like, people should not be able to call anonymously. That stuff is not right, because like you have, exes that are mad and they're going to call for no reason, or, for this instance, they don't like to pay child support. So if I get the kid, then I don't have to pay. And it's just corrupt, very corrupt. So at the end of this case, like I said, I knew I wasn't going to get the kids. And so I found my friend that I've known for over 10 years. I asked her if she would take my kids. She also has an autistic son. I really trust her around autistic children. And I knew that she would love them like I love them, because we were always together. We're always at each other's houses and stuff. And so she did. She took the kids. And so CPS made her sign a contract or a safety plan saying that she could never talk to me again. She cannot be my friend anymore, and she cannot allow me to talk to my children, or they're going to put her in jail for 1.5 years and take her own biological children. This happened because Oh yeah. And this happened because I was fighting in mediation. And the ASA told me that, okay, if you just go ahead and sign off your rights to Julie, or I'm sorry, to my friend, that will still allow you to have contact, and you wouldn't be able to force the kids to see you, but it would be up to your friend on how long and when you got to see them. And so we were doing that. We've been doing that for like 7 months. And well, I've been exposing CPS. My autistic son was beat up by his bus driver. I went on the news. Like, I'm exposing everybody. You don't hurt children.
No.
And you don't, falsify papers and things like that.
No.
And so I'm exposing them. And so CPS called CPS on me and on her and said that we were giving the kids drugs and smoking drugs with them.
A CPS worker called their own CPS agency and made false allegations against you.
It was multiple. It expanded over 3 counties: Pinellas, Hillsborough, and Marion County. So first they went out to Marion County and they went and checked my son that was over there at my friend's house. They gave my friend a drug test, which she came out clean for. And she, they were asking, questions, whatever. The allegations were that I'm living at her house and we're doing drugs with the kids. And so they made her sign this safety plan that she would not even be my friend or talk to me anymore. And then on top of that safety plan, she has to attend counseling so they can explain to her how I'm a danger to children. I'm a danger to children, but you have me backyard babysitting my kids? And when this CPI investigator came out and talked to me, she was like, so I showed her all these messages between me and the case manager. I'm like, I'm not having my son run away to come be with me. Like, look at these messages from the case manager. The case manager is encouraging this. This is what the case manager is telling me to do. And when my son runs away, I do have to, unfortunately bring him back so I don't get in trouble, which I do.
I think is such bullshit. That is like, it's the biggest sack of shit I've ever heard in my fucking life.
Yeah.
The fact that your kid is running away to go be with you should be enough. I mean, that should be like evidence enough that you're not a bad parent.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, hearing your story is so upsetting to me because I'm barely surviving day to day, just missing my 3. And I mean, and my oldest is 7 turning 8. I haven't seen them in almost a year because of, I don't want to get into it, because a lot of case parties on this whole thing like to watch the show and bring it up in court. I'm sorry.
So now it's been like a couple months since I've been able to talk to any of my kids, well, except my son that's autistic. He sneaks at school to call me, and his teachers and his friends let him call me. I talk to his teachers all the time on Facebook because that's how they have to get a hold of me. And but besides that, the ones that are with my friend, she's had to completely block me off of Facebook because she's in fear of losing her own bio. Which I understand, you know what I mean? I understand how they bully and how someone, if you've never dealt with CPS like that, how you can actually really be in fear for your life. Yes. And so that's where the story ends for me legally, because now I can't do anything. But since they still have me involved in the background, I'm able to know that, there's very inappropriate things going on at this autistic group home, enough to make my 14-year-old feel very uncomfortable between staff and children. Back when I was getting visitation, my son was in this particular home, and the foster mom gave my son her cell phone to call his guardian ad litem. And instead of supervising him, he got into her phone, which had her homemade pornography on it, with multiple men. And because she made my son upset and he does stuff that I don't condone. He took that and sent it to himself and everybody else in her contacts. And then she was calling my son a sexual offender because he did that. And so I actually made a police report and I made a CPS report against the home. They laughed in my face and said that basically I was an idiot and didn't know what I was talking about. The foster home got a slap on the hand and was told, you know, to not be handing out her phone, I guess, but she was still allowed to keep children in her home. And then so my son was kicked out of there because obviously she was kind of salty that her
I'm just
boyfriend
glad
seen that.
homemade videos got sent to everyone in her contacts because that's what that fucking bitch deserves. Okay, let's just.
The thing that, okay, so whatever anybody does is, you know, their thing. I don't judge on that. But when you hand a child and then a special needs child on top of that, a device that you know has pornography on it, you should be in trouble. That doesn't sit well with me that nobody said anything. And they also allowed her to keep other fosters in her home after that. That bugs me because you knowingly and willingly handed my child a device with your pornos on it. And there's nothing like being able to see your foster mom's vagina, right? Like that's definitely what we need at 14. Like I was so irate. I like I wanted to go to her house, but you know, and so then he's bouncing from group home to group home to group home because there's nowhere for him to go. So he's going to day and night placements because he's considered unadoptable. I don't even understand how any child can be considered.
There's one loving and perfectly capable home and that is more than equipped to take care of him. And that's the one place that they're keeping him from. I don't understand. It makes
yeah,
no
he's begged to come home. So when we were doing when the case manager was saying, oh, well, I'm going to try to get him back into your home as a non-relative caregiver, I wasn't assigned to do any task for him, but you know, because any good mother would, I was doing family counseling with him. And I was being psychoanalyzed by his psychologist, who then in turn wrote a 13-page report to the court that said it would be in the best interest that they turn him back to me.
And they ignored that, didn't they?
Yes.
Of course they did. Of course they did.
Yes. And so he's going to all these group homes. The people that they're hiring at these day and night placements, they were giving my son drugs. That's how my son started on drugs. And my son would run away. Well, on this particular incident that he ran away, I had picked him up. He called me. He had ran out of the group home in the middle of Tampa. And I was freaking out because it's Tampa and my son doesn't even know how to cross the street. He's on, you know what I mean? So I'm like, oh my God, are you kidding me? So I immediately go pick him up in front of this group home where the guy that's working there becomes aggressive with not only my son, but with me. And so I call the case manager and I'm like, look, I'm going to leave and I'm leaving with my son. You can feel free to pick him up at my house because I don't feel safe. On top of that, when I go into this group home or whatever, it's like this building in the middle of like Dollar Tree. There's like Dollar Tree and another store. And then in the middle of that, there's like this building where they keep the kids. It's all like one plaza. And it was so disgusting that when I tell you that I put my son's, all his bags, because he got kicked out. They kicked him out and told me to take him somewhere. I'm like, okay, I'm going to take him home. And so I put all his stuff, his garbage bags in my car, and I could not drive with the windows up. They had not washed my son's clothes. My son had not taken a shower. When his targeted case manager come to pick him up from my house, I made him smell that. I said, you tell me that you have all these staff and you can't wash clothes? You can't make sure he's taking a shower?
Punishment and humiliation on your son.
And
it
so
wouldn't surprise me at all. I used to be in a group home as well myself. My mom was anyway, I'm sorry, go ahead.
And so this is kind of like the same story with every group home he's been in. So the current home he's in that he keeps running away from, the children in that home are, I don't know how I can say it if I can just say it, but they're doing nasty things with each other. Okay. And it makes my son very uncomfortable because it's two boys and he's like, that's not right. And why are we doing this? And so the staff, when the boys come out after doing nasty stuff together, the staff asks the kids, oh, you liked getting your pee-pee sucked, didn't you? What? What?
Having
I said, what?
experience from that, I can tell you that group homes are not good places. They are even worse than foster homes, and foster homes are horrible places 90% of the time. I'm so sorry that your son had to be exposed to that.
Yeah, he runs away all the time because he doesn't like to be a part of that. He thinks that, well, I obviously raised him right, that, adults don't talk to kids like that. That's inappropriate. I don't care what those kids just did in that room. You as a grown man and as the boss of this house should not be asking these minors if they like to get their pee-pee sucked, because why would you even want to know that? That's disgusting.
Yeah, it makes you wonder, why do they want to?
And so when my son ran away, this last time, and I had to call the police and let them know because he was missing, endangered. And he told the police, and they looked at me in my eyes and told me, I'm sorry, but we have no choice but to bring him back there. There's nothing that we can do.
Kidding, but didn't they kick him out?
Not of this one. That was a couple group homes ago. This is the one that he's currently at.
How old is he now? I have to know.
He's 14.
He still has a little ways to go before he's out of the system. This is just, it's making me sick. And we are almost out of time. I just want to let you know. So.
Okay. Yeah, it's just so much, like it's been going on for so long that I just have so many documented stories. I keep proof of everything, all text messages, anything, that can prove on what I'm saying. I have multiple reports. I have went to the Tallahassee Quality Control for DCF and got an open investigation. And because I just knew that there was a bunch of stuff not right. Well, the report came back that there was a lot of missing evidence missing files in my file. I have, for my husband, because I remarried. So my current husband, he was on the last case plan. He was doing the drug test just like everybody else, and passing and blah, blah, blah. And then that case manager left and a new one came, and all of a sudden, my husband, they didn't even know that I had a husband. Who would have thunk that? And so he was just like nowhere to be found. Well, we have the papers where he did the drug tests. We have all of that. And so I sent it in to Tallahassee, but in the file, they don't have that he was ever even on a case plan. So there's just a lot of things that I just know that this cannot be okay.
It sounds like pure malfeasance to me, honestly. I'm so sorry to hear that you were going through this. Before I ask you our wrap-up questions, and I'm so sorry we ran out of time, I would love to have you back on to talk
absolutely.
about whatever you didn't have time to talk about today.
I appreciate it.
Anything else that you would like to add before I ask you those wrap-up questions?
No, I think we can leave that for next time, because then it's going to be so long that.
How about we come on? Let's bring you on next Monday.
Okay.
Time. Okay.
Yeah,
but we'll
absolutely.
start you off this time. Okay. Now the last two questions I want to ask you is, if your children, and you can address each one individually if you want, if your children were watching this right now, what would you want them to know?
That's the hard. Excuse me.
No, you're okay. Give me a second. This is really bothering me. Okay. Okay. There we go.
I would
better.
I would want them to know that I've never stopped fighting, even after TPR. I'm always checking on them. I know where they all live. Like I'm always looking at pictures, and I want them to know that I didn't give them up. I didn't want them to leave. And I've tried everything to get them back or to put them in a house where I knew that they would be okay. And CPS has fought me every step of the way. And I just need them to know that I'm going to continue fighting. I'm not only fighting for mine, but I'm fighting for everybody else's. And, you know, that they're going to be 18 and they're going to come home, and they're allowed to come home because we love them. They have a big family that thinks about them all the time, you know, and we're just heartbroken. I don't think you can explain a loss like that. You know, it's one thing to bury your child and know he's in heaven, but then there's one thing to lose your child and they're in this world without you.
Yep.
You know, we're okay living without the kids because we had that before. We've lived it, but these kids have never been without me. They've never had babysitters. I never went out, you know, and partied or left them with anybody. It was just us. And I know that they were devastated just like I am, because they cried and they cried and they cried that they wanted to come home. And I always told them that they were, and I feel like I failed them. So I'm so sorry if I failed you guys, but I will never give up fighting. And it's never too late. It's hard. And I hope that they don't go through the pain that I go through.
Oh my gosh, I'm in tears. I always used to say on the show, I personally believe that, that losing your child in life is worse than losing your child in death, because at least in death, you know they're in a better place and you have that closure. But losing them in life where you don't know if they're okay, especially with your special needs son, where you know that he's suffering and you have tried everything, and these fucking demons are just ripping these children apart and traumatizing them over and over. Oh my gosh.
It just breaks my heart that my son, you know, you say he's autistic, but he's so freaking smart. He's just like, Mom, don't worry, I'm gonna run away. And he's a little rapper. He likes to sing and stuff. And he's like, you don't worry, I'm gonna sing and you're never gonna worry about this. And it he shouldn't have to tell me that. He shouldn't have to tell me that. I should be bringing him to the studio and, you know, encouraging him. Yeah. But what's on his mind is that he just wants to be back with his mom, and he's going to live with me forever because he doesn't want to leave. And that hurts me because I shouldn't have to hear my child shouldn't have to say that. I should be protecting my child. My child should not have to protect me or worry about if I'm sad or not, or he shouldn't have to be the one to call me. I should be able to call him. And it just breaks my heart because no matter how much he fights, they don't care, you know. There's no words for it. I just need, they're gonna know because they're gonna see my face and they're gonna know that I was fighting. May 21st of this year, I'll be going to Washington, D.C. I'm speaking at the White House.
Congratulations.
At the Lincoln Memorial.
Okay.
So,
send me a message. I want to tune into that. That is amazing. Okay. I commend you for taking action. Thank you. Oh my goodness. I'm so proud of you.
Yes, I advocate here for parents in Florida. I'm with the Family Forward Project. So we're a big project, and we're going to try and make some laws out here in Florida. I know that Texas is now TPR by jury, and we're going to try and make that nationwide.
Arizona just passed a bill doing that very same thing. We have the right, every person who walks into a courtroom and is in a case, they have every person with a court case has the right to a jury trial, but you have to demand it in the beginning. Again, they take advantage of parents who don't know their legal and parental rights. Honestly, I don't care if we're going over time today. I am really inspired by your story. I really am. And
thank you.
don't stop fighting. I'm seeing, over the time that I've been doing these shows, I can personally see how much momentum we are beginning to get. And we just need to
Yes.
keep that moving. We just need to snowball that shit and shut this down. And it's going to happen. People are waking up. It's gonna happen.
Oh yeah.
We-
It's happening by the thousands. People are
Oh
angry.
yeah.
We got angry parents,
Oh
and
yeah. Oh,
and
there.
we're coming. We're
Yeah.
coming. And we're gonna do it. We're gonna do it. I was talking to somebody on my group, and I said I don't mind being the Rosa Parks of this movement because someone's got to.
Yeah.
And if we didn't have the Rosa Parks, then who knows where we would be today.
Yes.
And so I'm prepared to stand on the front line. And even if I get attacked, I've been attacked, but even if I continue to get attacked, because if you don't fight for this now, your children will not have a voice in the future to fight. And we're not going to know what family is, because they're going to tear all the children away from the parents eventually. And we're not going to know what family is. There will be no family dynamic. And you're going to have a bunch of children or adults at that time that are trying to run this country with a lot of psychological issues. And it's, oh yeah.
We have a lot of work to do, guys. We have a lot of work to do.
Absolutely.
Now, last question before we close today. If there was another parent, any parents who are in your particular situation, unique to your case, what advice would you give them?
I would highly encourage you guys to learn your laws for each state. These court-appointed lawyers are not going to represent you. They're not going to defend you. They eat lunch with these guys every day. They're friends. Like, this is just their job. The kids, they don't care about these families. Learn your laws. Never let your kids go into foster care or any other system. Find a relative caregiver. They are supposed to always look at relative caregivers first. I know they don't, but demand it, because it is supposed to happen. Get into your local groups on Facebook that, like the Family Forward Project, or any other groups. There's so many CPS groups out here right now. Get with the other parents that have been dealing with this, because there is advocates in this group, that in any group that does want to help and that will help you. And there is papers that you can file by yourself without lawyers. And make sure that you're always getting your visits. They try not to give you guys visits. That's to look bad on you guys in the end. But make sure that you are visiting. Make sure you know your laws. Make sure you're having support. It's I can't tell you how hard it is to go through this alone. You don't want to go through this alone. And never give up. Never give up. I don't care if you've been TPR'd. That is your kid. That's your blood. You keep fighting. And just for encouragement, I want to share what the counselor had shared with me. I believe it's over 92% of terminated kids always come back to their bio families. So never give up.
Amen. Thank you so much for sharing your amazing and inspiring story with us today. We're going to have you on next Monday to finish up, the portion that you were able to finish today. And I very much look forward to that. And can you please remind all of our viewers what date you are going to be speaking?
Yes, so we're going to have a family rights rally May 21st, 2022 from 12 to 6 p.m. It's going to be at the Lincoln Memorial. I will be speaking there, but we're going to have many great speakers there. And rumor has it we're going to have a couple lawmakers as well that are on the
So we have a family rights rally. Hold on. Let me take a note of this before we get off, unless you can send it to me in a message. But it's coming up. It's coming up May 21st this year.
Yeah, so if you go on Facebook and you put the Family Rights Rally, Washington, D.C., you'll find all that information on there. I believe Connie Reguli is the head of that, along with Karen Cook and Laura Thomason. I hope I pronounced her name right. But there's going to be a couple different, that group, and then Family Forward is going to be out there. So we're going to have two different groups out there colliding together. And I know that we're going to be leaving shoes, children's shoes out there for every child that's not accounted for in the system. We have so many missing foster children that are not accounted for. So we're going to leave shoes for all those children. So the White
Are you
House
talking
can
about
fill
children
our
that
tank.
have literally gone missing in the system?
Oh yeah.
Okay. I'm glad that we're addressing that animal in the room as well.
Yeah, we're gonna be talking about that there, and I know that we have two senators or something. I don't quote me on that, but two people high up in the White House that are also on our side, and they'll be hiding out. We can't. They didn't let me know their names yet.
My
They
contractor is
didn't.
yelling at somebody in the background. I've got
Oh,
construction.
I can't hear it. I can't hear it.
No.
So. So I know that we're going to have people there that are on our side. They did not tell me their name for security reasons, obviously. But I know that we're going to also have lawmakers. We're going to have a bunch of different speakers, not just parents, but psychologists and things like that.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that. Guys, I know I'm in Virginia. I'm not that far away. I can almost bet my bottom dollar I'm going to be there. So
please come out. Everybody that can join. We need voices. We need the bodies.
These are
so they can
the kind of things that we need to do to make change. So if you can support it, any of our viewers, let's go for it. Thank you.
Yes, please.
Thank you for giving us that.
Thank you.
Of course. Well, I will see you next Monday, and hang in there. And you have a great support system. You're doing amazing things. So we're going to turn this pain into progress.
Thank you so much.
Overcome this. We're going to overcome this system. We're going to shut it down. All right. Well,
together.
Yes. Thank you so much, guys. I have another show coming up on Thursday, Fight CPS, the Civil Rights Struggle. That is at 7 p.m. Pacific time. And I have a new show on Friday. And that will be I call it Fight With Me Fridays. We're going to unload our trauma. We're going to talk about self-care. We're going to talk about how to survive. That's one conversation that no one's having. How do you survive every day? And we're going to unhash that. And we'll give you guys some good skills. So thank you everyone for tuning in today. And thank you, Amber, so much for joining us. I was very inspired by your story, and we'll be in touch.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. All right, everyone. Have a great day.